All right, man. Let's talk, man. Detroit Pistons pull off an epic comeback versus the Orlando Magic. I know a lot of people was thinking like, "Yo, this is about to look just like, um, this is about to look just like, um, this is about to look like when Atlanta, gave up versus the Knicks, and they showed JB Bickerstaff, really maneuvering, really, doing this thing from a coaching standpoint of view. Yeah, he showed him doing this thing. So, uh, never got too high, never got wavered, and really, kind of what turned the game around respectfully was K, Asar Thompson, and B-Ball Paul Reed. Whatever is going on with Jalen Duren in this series, dude, you hope if they can get past Orlando in a tough 7-game series, that next series, it was just Orlando. It was just, how they was playing on Angel Reese. It was just, it was just Orlando, and he can, hopefully, we, blessed enough to move on to the next round. We can move on to the next round, and it just was Orlando. But, so you hoping it just was Orlando in general, okay? Paul Reed just came and showed that they should have just closed the game out with Paul Reed. And I ain't saying that Duren did a bad job closing the game out. He didn't. He came in, and it's just a rule of thumb. You ride with the guys who got you there. But obviously, B-Ball Paul is just a better matchup versus Wendell Carter than Stu and Jalen Duren. And if I'm them, I'm gonna put him out there. Maybe because he may be fresher, it may just be a better matchup. He may be not as physical as those guys, but he just may be more athletic or whatever it may be. And I think that's an adjustment that they got to make. I mean, the team really came back because of the spark. B-Ball Paul B-Ball Paul, Thompson, K, and playing on the bad ankle. That's it. That's what it is. That's what it really is. So, but ultimately for them, and I get it. You really want to ride with the guys who brought you to the party. Realistically, that's what you want. And yesterday, Paul Reed changed his, he gave he changed the energy. But ultimately, that just like you have to have a certain mental toughness not to roll over and give up. Going through the box score, you go through Orlando first. I mean, they were just all around the game. They just was, consistent as far as, for them who, Paolo, Bane, it was just a more of a balance. You just wonder when you was watching the box score, you was like, how was they just taking off on them? You know what I'm saying? They had 1, 2, 3 guys in double figures, and that towards the and most of that came in the first half. So in the second half, they only had 19 points. Look at Detroit; they had 3 guys in double figures, but one guy went off for 19 in the fourth quarter. Just Tobias Harris has just been consistent. He had 22. Duncan Robinson hit some critical threes. He finally had a good 3-point shooting game at the right time. And that was it. Duren had one of those bullshit ass games. And look, Duren played 32 minutes, right? 8 points, 9 rebounds, right? Paul Reed played 11 minutes, 6 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Like, the proof's in the pudding. Even considered to Isaiah Stewart. I don't know what's going on with Isaiah Stewart. Is it an injury? Or whatever the situation may be, but if you gonna close the series out, Somebody got to give you, man. Paul Reed got to play more. All right. And then at this point, if, Karis LeVert, Javon, at some point you got to say, okay, I don't even see old buddy on here. What's his name? What's buddy's name? I must be overlooking it. The white boy, Herter. I don't even see Herter name on the list. Is he hurt or something? I know he ain't start. Harris, Robinson, Durant, Cunningham, Thomas, Reed, Stewart, Green, LeVert, Jenkins, Smith, Holland, Sasser, Chaz Lanier. So at the end of the day, I think it's just, put Karis LeVert in the deep freezer, Javonte Green in the deep freezer. And I just think it's Paul Reed, Dennis Jenkins. And if I'm keeping it a bean, either you got to go with Herter or Marcus Sasser, and that got to be your guys. You got to get somebody else that's capable of giving you double figures. Somebody capable of getting you double figures. And right now, Jenkins, Paul Reed, Herter, or Hollins, that they got to be your three that you play off the bench. They got to be your three that you play off the bench. So, nasty stat lines for them. And Duncan Robinson finally came, but it's no way that your starting center played 32 minutes and as talented as Duran is, he give you 8 points. And then whatever happened to Stewart, did Isaiah Stewart get injured or something? Did he get injured? Because 8 minutes, I don't know what happened. But some of these things can't continue to happen. I'm just going to keep it a bean. Some of these things can't continue to happen, bro. It just can't. They got to put Paul in. And at some point, you got to say, you know what? Nobody give me what I need off the bench. Sasser, Holland, you got to make that change. There's been 6 games and these guys ain't did nothing. So at what point do you sit here as a coach and you finally make that adjustment? You got to. You paying these other guys to pay too. I'm pretty sure it's fresher legs. They can give you a spark, but amazing comeback. Thompson played really, really well on defense. Had a critical block at the end. Him and Cade, Cade and Paul, B-Ball, Paul, and Tobias put the team on their back. And Robinson gave him a little bit of help. Now, if Durant just did his job, this series would be over with. I keep telling you all this. And in my opinion, had they played B-Ball Paul, this series would be over with. But realistically, it would have been over with had Durant held up his end of the bargain. That's it. It'd be over with if Durant upheld his end of the bargain. And he hasn't. He strictly has not held up his end of the bargain. And that's a problem. And you hoping it's just, okay, it's the whole this magic is too physical or whatever else going on. You hoping, that's just the problem. That's all you hoping, like, okay, that's just a problem. It's a bad matchup, or that it just got into his head, and now next series he can move on and do his thing. For his sake, for his money's sake, for the whole nine. That's what you hoping for. But if that's not the case, I don't know, man. I don't know. But I think the vibe is to, Paul Reed, there's got to be a lot of Paul Reed. And if I'm being realistic, man, I'm going to keep rolling with Jenkins. I had no choice, but they got to fire Herter, Sasser, or Hollins and put them into the lineup. What do you have to lose, to be honest? If these dudes going, and then also in a lot of these guys' defense, only get 19, 5, 12, and 8, 11 minutes. How am I gonna find a rhythm? How am I gonna find a rhythm to be real? So to keep it a bean, I asked before, this series starting for the playoff start, obviously, that what was going to be the rotation. What was the rotation going to be like for? And I think that's where he struggled the most as a coach at. I'm gonna keep it real. That's where he struggled the most as a coach at. He struggled the most as a coach. When we get in here and we start talking about the rotation, that's where he failed this team at. That's where he failed this team at. He got to stick with a rotation. He got to stick with a rotation. And when you figure out the rotation to stick with, he'd be okay. You can't just spread little minutes here and here and expect even a scorer like Dennis Jenkins to find his rhythm with 19 minutes and then 10 minutes. And then, no, you got to get these guys regular minutes to find their rhythm. You got to get them regular minutes to find their rhythm. And that's what he doesn't understand. And that's what he don't understand. So hopefully he figured that out for his sake. When you looking for scores and you looking for guys to be in sync, you gotta let them play. You gotta let somebody, even if it's gonna play two guys off the bench at this point, let them get 20, 25 minutes off that bench. Let them get all the minutes. It's hard for a guy like LeVert with 5 minutes to find a rhythm, or Herter to find a rhythm, or Jenkins to find a minute with 19 minutes. You do the math. That ain't even 5 minutes a quarter. So good win, but I am thinking coaching is starting to fail them a little bit with the rotations. The best man must play. Be real, the best man must play. The best man must play. And right now, if I'm making any adjustments to this, I'm starting Paul Reed. It ain't no disrespect. Or I'm playing Paul Reed more. It ain't no disrespect. But if I'm coming with something a little bit different, and I wanna just for this series, I'm rolling with Paul Reed more than Duran. I'm upticking Dennis Jenkins' minutes, right? I want to uptick his minutes. Hopefully he can find the rhythm. Hopefully we can go through some film. And then other than that, I probably gotta get Herter in there. I'm gonna be calling his number. But that's just my opinion on it. But good win, man. Good comeback win. But I think coaching is failing them a little bit, man. Just a smidget. But hey, check out the Detroit Pistons with the rotations and all that. Check out Detroit Pistons post-game prediction. Hit the link in the description. Follow me on X, Facebook, Kick, Twitch, Instagram, Spotify, Anchor, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. Appreciate the love, support. Let me know what you girls and guys think in the comment section. Peace.